following broadcast is brought to you by A.C.T, Agora's Center of Thought. Here only on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Every Saturday, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on the dark side of radio. Agora, Anarchy, Action. Welcome to the dark web, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Agora Underground here on the Voluntary Virtues Network. I am Comrade Rick, your co-host, sitting here with my other co-host.
What's going on? Darren Hernandez here. What's going on, folks? Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We got the bling bling here, getting ready to roll. This is a sub-project of Free San Antonio and Agora of Central Texas, Agora Center of Thought. And we're here on the Voluntary Virtues Network every Saturday, 8 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We do appreciate you guys listening in yet again. And have quite a show planned out here for today. We have been reading through Rothbard's critiques of Konkin's libertarian strategies. And we were really disappointed last week when we left it off, with Rothbard basically calling Agorists a bunch of counter-revolutionaries. And quote Stalin or Joseph Stalin or whoever the hell he was quoting.
Yeah, it took that one to the heart. Kind of hurt a little bit.
It felt like a backstab a little bit in the kidney.
It's like, oh, Rothbard, why'd you get me?
But yeah, so we've just been breaking that down. That is on the Mises website. Just type in, do a Google search, libertarian strategy or Konkin, Konkin, and then, Mises, and it should come right up, or Agorism and Mises. We basically left off with this, he quoted here a Stalinist term, Joseph Stalin, objectively counter-revolutionary. He calls Agorism counter-revolutionary since Agorists aren't, willing to partake in the political process and partake in lobbying and all that circusry.
Jokery.
Yeah, that jokery. Somehow we're counter-revolutionary. Somehow we're counterproductive at that point, according to Rothbard. But so anyway, here we're just moving on to section 2. Before we get started here, anything interesting happened to you this week, Darian, as far as the police state or your personal life and your experiences with anarchy and getting that information out there?
Oh, well, yeah, man. Actually, I think I told you this one before. I was on the Taco Cabana on Fredericksburg, and a cop decided to park right at the entrance of Taco Cabana, like right when you turn off of the main street to go into the parking lot. He was parked, pretty much blocking people from getting in. And I had got out.
For all you Northerners up there, Taco Cabana is it's like a slightly more authentic version of Mexican food than compared to Taco Bell or something like that. I don't think they got those up north, Taco Cabana.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So yeah, it's a Mexican restaurant for you folks. But the funny thing is, my friend has trouble getting into the Taco Cabana due to this cop, blocking the whole damn parking lot entrance. And I get out and I tell this officer, hey man, you should move your car, it's a safety hazard. And he pretty much looks at me and he's like, hey, come over here. And when he tells me to come over there to talk to him, I already have the door open. I'm already ready to go back inside. I said my 2 cents, and that should have been it. But he pulls me aside and says, well, thank God I have the power to do that. You see those lights right there? Those are my safety lights, or my hazard lights. Did you have a problem getting in here? And I was like, well, I'm not the one driving, so no, I really didn't have a problem getting in here, but I'm pretty sure my friend did. And my friend was like, yeah, I had a problem getting in here. And he didn't respond to that at all. He was just like, okay, well, whatever. Yeah, I can park there. And I thought it was funny. I was like, well, your partner parked in a parking space. Why couldn't you do that? And he
That's
pretty
funny.
much, and he tried asking me for my ID using a bully tactic just because I told him something that he normally never hears. And he told me this, that's the first time anybody's ever told me. I told him like this: there's a first time for everything, man, so get used to it. And he wouldn't even look at me or acknowledge anything I would say after that. He was like, give me your ID, do you have anything on your record? If you do, you're going straight to jail.
Oh,
I'm not even hesitating. You're going to jail. And luckily I didn't. So he's pretty much wasting my time. But like he said, I pulled him aside to talk to him about this. I was just like, no, you pulled me aside. You called me out and told me to come talk to you. So I ended the conversation. I tried shaking his hand. What does he do? Rolls his eyes and doesn't shake my hand at all and tells me, go have a good day.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, public servant. You're supposed to be our, protectors, our heroes,
Yeah, serve and protect.
Yep.
Darian, and you're always getting in confrontation with the police. It's funny, man. I love you for that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like everybody should. We we maintain the power and our voice and in our opinions, our thoughts, to rise above their bulliness, their old ways of doing things, and I guess they don't realize that they're slowly becoming obsolete.
Yeah. And and this reminds me of the sentiment that you hear from so many people when you start talking about the cops like this. So many people will just come out and say, oh, well, they're people too, and they're just doing their job, and they have children and they have to feed, and blah blah blah. And it's like, really? I mean, so did the freaking Nazis, so did the brown shirts. I'm sure they had family that they were feeding with the money they were making, from serving in Hitler's youth. But I mean, come on now, give me a break. I mean, there's a time to, there's a time when your so-called service or your so-called, product is actually hindering society. And like you're saying, man, that time has come for the state and for its enforcers, because you guys are so out of date. It's time to catch up with the times,
Yeah, exactly.
Still sending faxes when we got email, whatever. But yeah, as far as myself personally, I didn't really have too much happen, other than the fact that I think after we did the broadcast last week, we went to my sister's little get together. She had a couple friends over, and just having a couple of drinks, hanging out. And I'm sitting here talking to this kid who's like 16, 17 years old or something for like an hour or two. And wow, man, it just really blew my mind, the amount of socialism and indoctrination that the children, the youngsters these days. And I'm 28, so I'm not like that much older than this guy, right? I mean, I'm like, okay, 10 years older than him. But I mean, but still, the amount of, indoctrination. And yeah, I mean, I have fellow students that I graduated with back in '05 that think the same way. It's ridiculous. They think that the state, he's literally saying things like, oh, well, the state, creates wealth, and the state creates jobs, and the state ensures, prosperity.
Socialism is great.
Socialism is great. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Saying that somehow the market leads to, we all know the arguments. The market leads to corruption and leads to slavery, and the government leads to freedom and prosperity and utopia, and I'm just cutting him left and right, and he doesn't even acknowledge any of the freaking points that I'm making. It's like anytime he brings something up and I have a counter to it, he moves on to some other point or makes some other abstract notion, and doesn't even address the fact that his point fell on his face. Like, so it's just interesting. You get that when debating the status, or it's very much like a religion. People get into this kind of like this focused mindset, and they don't acknowledge anything that you're saying or doing. They don't acknowledge reason and common sense, and they just keep blabbering and keep,
They're like, nah. You see, the way it is and the way it's gonna happen is whatever I say it to be.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, dude.
I mean, I was there for this, so I can bear witness to this. This guy would just not let up on socialism. Like, they were redonkulous. Like, I was about to lose my temper. And I'm pretty sure Richard was feeling the same way, just a tad bit. You're like, come on, man.
I'm just chilling, drinking the brew, talking to this guy, but it's like, god damn,
Get it through your thick skull.
Yeah, get through your skull. And then other than that, we went, Darren and I went to the Alamo. We don't usually get footage of that, because I mean, it's like we're not, it's like, unless cops are coming and giving us a hard time, or unless we have a really good debate with somebody. I mean, it's like we're just out there preaching the word, passing out flyers, doing what we do, doing what we need to do to promote liberty, and we encourage y'all to do so as well. On our Facebook group page, Agora to Central Text, we have a bunch of flyers on there that you feel free to download, alter, add your name and your email to it. Your organizations, I don't care. We don't believe in intellectual property here. Go ahead and copy and paste as much as you want, and start passing out flyers, start doing something, go out there and talk to people, go out there and promote liberty, and start with the basics, and talk about the things that you are sure of and you understand. That way you can communicate ideas properly. But anything other than that, we've just been hanging out, been studying and fighting the state every day, working, producing, and doing what we do, avoiding the state apparatus as much as we can. So we figured we might as well try to finish this up today. I don't know if we're going to or not. It's only about, 3-4 pages left. We might get to the last section here. But this next section here, that Rothbard brought up, is section 2, the problem of organization. And here he starts off. He says, I turn now to Konkin's critique of the current libertarian movement. In New Libertarian Manifesto and other writings, there are 3 basic threads in his critique which are entirely distinct, but which Konkin generally confuses and conflates. These are 1, the problem of hierarchical organization, 2, the problem of the coctopus, and 3, the Libertarian Party. Generally, Konkin lumps them all together and thereby confuses all these issues. We must unpack them. Let us do so by first assuming, for the sake of argument, that there is no Libertarian Party, and that there are simply other libertarian institutions, organizations, institutes, magazines, or whatever. Would Konkin's complaints disappear if the LP collapsed, if the Libertarian Party collapsed? Clearly not, for there runs through his writings an attack not only on hierarchical organization, but on organization per se. He is against joint stock companies because they are organized hierarchically, and seems to be against all other voluntary organizations for similar reasons. He not only opposes wages, he also wants only individual alliances, and not organizations at all. And it would have been great, for Rothbard, being such a analytical student and academic that he was, it would have been great for him to source a lot of these things that he's accusing of Konkin of, and of course we're going to read through the Libertarian Manifesto soon enough to see if these arguments hold up, hold any water. But it would have been nice, being that Rothbard is such a academic and so scholarly and like sourcing everything that he says. It's interesting that he didn't do that. He didn't go through the trouble when it came to this. He continues on here, though. He says that first, there is nothing either unlibertarian or unmarket about a voluntary organization, whether joint stock or any other. People organize because they believe they can accomplish things more effectively that way than through independent contracting or ad hoc alliances. And so they can. So 1, they are not immoral or unlibertarian, and 2, they are the only way by which almost anything can be accomplished, whether it's making automobiles or setting up bridge or chess tournaments. Konkin suggested floating affinity groups can accomplish very little, and that when only a handful of people are involved. But if more than a handful wish to cooperate on joint tasks, whether steel making or chess tournaments, an organization does become necessary. Organizations, of course, create problems, and it is really pointless to go on about them. If more than 3 or 4 people wish to engage in a joint task, then some people will override the wishes of others. Example, should we paint the office blue or beige? And there are bound to be power struggles, faction fights, and all the rest. Even corporations which have to meet a continuing profit test have these problems. And the difficulties are bound to increase in non-profit organizations where there is no instant profit or loss feedback. Everything there in organizations makes complete sense. I completely agree with Rothbard on all this. Obviously you start a soccer team, there's going to have to be some form of hierarchy in it. Someone's going to have to decide, whether an individual or a small group within the team is going to have to decide what days they're going to play, what days, whatever they're going to, the type of jerseys,
kicker is, who the driver is,
the positions, the uniforms,
what strategy we're going to use.
Right. If you left this up to every single individual in the organization, you would be there all day, trying to get something accomplished, and everyone would be, there'd be different factions, different groups divided on. Oh, we want the black uniform. Oh, we want the white uniform. We want the orange uniform. Whatever. And this is a very valid point here about organization. This is kind of obvious, really, to anybody that's ever dealt with any kind of organization, they realize there has to be initiative brought in from a smaller group. Unfortunately, this is the way it is, but so long as the organizations aren't forcing anybody to be part of them, then it's okay, then it's voluntary still. It's all right. It's all dandy. This reminds me of my experiences with the Occupy group. It's like they were so hell-bent on trying to get unanimous voting on everything, every little detail, that they would literally spend like half a day, debating what they should talk about. Voting on what they should talk about. And then by the time it finally, by the time the vote was finally unanimous, like half the people had left, everyone else is doing something else. It's impossible to run, a large group of people on direct democracy where everyone has an equal say. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think they should just take their own good idea and ran with it, and whoever went along with it, then it worked. But whoever didn't, then let them do their own thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how he Rothbard here at the end points out how even in corporations there's this struggle, even though they have to meet a profit test, which is really neat, because this is the beautiful thing about profit, is that if you're making profit, then that's the market telling you, that's your customers telling you that they're satisfied with your product, that you're essentially doing a good job. That's the way the collective, the Agora, is telling you, hey, thumbs up, pat on the back. And you can determine whether it's a good choices or not. You decide to change your logo, and then all of a sudden you lose sales. You start to lose sales. Well, guess what? That was a bad choice, so you go back to your original logo or whatever. That's just an example. But I like how he brings up that this problem is compounded in nonprofit organizations, right? Where people are always switching things, logos, or switching styles, or switching approaches and different things. And since they don't have that profit talking to them, since the market isn't telling them, hey, we like your product, we don't like your product, it doesn't really matter since they're nonprofit. It's just further compounded. There's more divisions and more factions and more people with different opinions trying to get different things across. And no one knows what works and what doesn't, right? Because there is no profit. How are you supposed to determine whether this is actually benefiting people around you or not? But so I like that. That's some good economics right there. So he continues on here. He says, so organizations create problems. So what? So does life itself, or friendships, romantic relationships, or whatever. Most people think the drawbacks are worth it and are more than compensated by the benefits of working for and achieving joint goals. But if not, they can always drop out and not belong to an organization. In a free society, they have that privilege. And of course, we are talking here about a voluntary organization. I suspect Mr. Konkin and his colleagues don't like to join organizations. So be it. But those of us who wish to accomplish various goals will continue to do so. And it seems to me we are at least entitled to the acknowledgement that there is nothing in the slightest unlibertarian about organization, hierarchy, leaders, and followers, etc., so long as these are done voluntarily. If the Konkinians fail to acknowledge this primordial libertarian point, then their libertarian bona fides would come into serious questioning. Yeah, I mean, that's true, right? I mean, this is a main point of contention with socialism and all these people that try to, it's the syndicalists, where it's like, okay, well, you're trying to force me into your union, right? You're trying to force me into your organization. I don't want to be part of that, and that's where their theories fall apart. It's like, well, according to the syndicalists and according to the communists and all these unionized, worker unions and all that, you have to be part of it. For you to separate and create your own business and compete with them is it's corruption, exploitation, it's evil. So yeah, I mean, this is a primordial libertarian point, is the right to associate or disassociate from a group. That pretty much wraps up the second point as far as organization. I would have really loved some quotes there, right? From Konkin.
Give me some quotes, maybe some references, some people.
Something, Rothbard. Come on, Rothbard. Yeah. It's like we have to read the manifesto for ourselves just to just to see what it's all about. So here he continues on Section 3, the Coctopus, the Koch brothers. Konkin has also riled against the beneficence of Charles Koch, not only for being pro-libertarian party, but also because he has tended to acquire a, quote, monopoly, end quote, of the movement. Still abstracting from the Libertarian Party, let us begin by each one of us putting ourselves in Koch's place. You say are a multimillionaire, and you get converted to libertarianism. You're all excited about it, and you want to do something to advance the cause. Things being what they are, the main thing you can contribute is your money. What should you do? The trouble with asking us to make this act of imagination is that most of us can't conceive of ourselves as multimillionaires, and too many of us have absorbed the primitive populist view of millionaires as an evil Fu Manchu characters bent on exploitation. But let's take the case of our multimillionaire convert. Would Konkin really say that he should do nothing because this might create a, quote, monopoly of the movement? Do we not want to convert multimillionaires? Do we not think that money is important in advancing the movement? So it is surely grotesque to send our multimillionaire packing. Obviously, we should welcome his contributions to the cause and hope for as much as possible. Okay, so you are a multimillionaire convert to libertarianism. To whom or what should you give your money? Now, this is a considerable responsibility, and since no one can be omniscient, our multimillionaire is bound to make mistakes along the way. But all we can ask of him or ourselves is to do the best that he or she can, according to their knowledge. The multimillionaire, therefore, deserves our approbation, our welcome to the cause. Instead, what he inevitably gets, human nature being what it is, will be complaints and attacks without cease. For if A, B, and C, people or institutions, receive his largesse, I don't know what that word is, but I guess it's money.
It's one of those words, man. It's okay. Yeah. I had problems in the episodes previous to this one on that.
So institutions A, B, and C receive his money, right? This inevitably leaves groups or institutions D, E, and F out in the cold. And whether through envy and or righteous indignation at the wrong path taken, D, E, and F will no doubt yell bloody murder. To us poor folk, it might seem absurd to say that the life of a multimillionaire is hard and thankless, but it seems clear that this is an important point for us to remember. Yeah, that's a very good point. I like that. It's like, picture a millionaire, walking down the street. It's like, how many mouths is this multimillionaire feeding, in the sense of how many jobs is he, giving to people out there? How many business transactions is he engaging in where people are producing things, and people, all this demand for jobs and laborers, mm-hmm. and and even government bureaucrats. How many taxes is this multimillionaire paying? How much welfare is this multimillionaire giving to people? He's giving a lot of welfare, right? I mean, he's getting taxed out the wazoo.
He's getting
right.
He's probably getting taxed like way more than anybody in Occupy would even think that rich people were getting taxed. I remember seeing the one video. It's just like, yeah, we need to tax the rich. It's like, we can talk about, we tax the hell out of them. Yeah, so they can afford it.
Yeah, so it's funny here. Exactly. So it's funny here that Rothbard brings this up, because it's really that point. It's like, if a multimillionaire, the biggest contributor in the room to the welfare state, right, to welfare, to food stamps and I don't know, public schooling and all these different things, the military, right? And technically, it's thanks to them in a lot of ways that we have these things. It's thanks to the what was that? I don't know, but it's thanks to the.
I think we had a video caller.
Yeah. thanks to these million, how many of them walk around and get thanked for what they do? Right? Normally, when they walk around, everyone's looking at them like, "Oh, that bastard,
that rich pig,
that cold-blooded beast." Right? And so Rothbard's bringing up a good point here. It's like, as far as like maybe not necessarily with Konkin, we haven't analyzed that as of yet, but as far as how millionaires are treated, and as a whole, people treat them with malintent, with reproach. They don't like multimillionaires too much, even though the multimillionaire is giving more than their fair share to the social contract. So that's an interesting point. It's like, remember that, next time you see a rich person or next time you buy something from somebody, it's like they just gave you a bigger service than the state ever did in your whole life. Right? Thank that rich guy next time you see him. Anyway, so he continues on here. Rothbard says, but there is more to be said. The critics of the multimillionaire might say, okay, it's great that he's giving all that money to the cause, but why does he have to control everything? But here again, you are the multimillionaire, and you want to do the best you can for the liberty with the money you give out. Wouldn't you want to have control over how your own money is spent? Hell yes. You'd have to be an idiot not to. And also not care too much either about money or the libertarian cause. If you didn't, right? There are few multimillionaires who are idiots. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I can't say they're all, saints.
Yeah, they may not all be saints, but they're definitely not all idiots. That's for sure. So what about the Konkin monopoly, the Koch brothers, which occupy in the fake left, the fake liberals, the Democrats, the statists are always bringing up? The Koch brothers, they donate to Cato Institute and Reason Magazine and the Libertarian Party. Oh my gosh, it's a conspiracy. Right?
They're conspiring against us.
to deregulate business. They're trying to get us to start businesses.
Don't make me think.
So here Mr. Konkin should have fallen back on his Austrian economics. Suppose that only one firm is producing aluminum. I was about to say the British way of saying it, aluminium.
Aluminium. Indeed.
You got the crumpets? Because I got the tea, bro.
Oh, that is superb, sir.
So, should we start yelling at it for being a monopoly, or should we hope for more firms to enter the industry? Clearly the latter, unless the monopolistic is using the state to keep other competitors out, which of course Mr. Koch is not doing. Quite the contrary, Koch would be delighted to find other multimillionaires converted to liberty and giving money to the movement, as would we all. So that the answer to the problem of Koch monopoly is to find a dozen more multimillionaire libertarians. It is grossly unfair and fallacious to put the blame on the monopolist for his situation. Yeah, I mean that's a perfect example there of not what do you call it? Uneven advantage, right? It's not a pure competitive market. It never is. And in this case, the Koch brothers were the first multimillionaires to donate to the Libertarian Party. So it seems like they own a monopoly on it. It seems like they're the biggest, the biggest wallet, the biggest paycheck, and the biggest account in the movement. But it's just the fact that there's not perfect competition. We don't have other players in the market at the moment. So the best thing we can do is try to convert more multimillionaires into the movement. That way, the Koch brothers aren't the only multimillionaires giving to the movement, right? This is really ingenious way of looking at things, as Rothbard points out. And Konkin brought this up in his book, The Agorist Primer, right? I mean, Konkin said there are natural monopolies, and just because something is a monopoly if it's not using force, if it's not using the state to try to control its monopoly, to keep the monopoly, then that's fine. There's no issue with it. So you may have a situation where, I don't know, there's this mineral that this, Health Force company sells that comes from like one volcano in the whole world. So it's a resource that can only be located in one specific area in the whole freaking world.
And we got 5 mining stations on that volcano. So,
well, yeah, and it's like, so how many, just because you have 1 or 2 companies producing, purifying that mineral to food quality, to food grade, to be ingested by human beings, doesn't mean that it's somehow a monopoly. It just means that they're the only companies doing that at the moment. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of another example here. It's like Red Bull going up to space, right? Having the guy jump off from the stratosphere or whatever.
Yeah, the strato jump.
Yeah, the strato jump. It's like what? Does that mean that Red Bull has a monopoly on space?
No. Does that mean they own the stratosphere?
Yeah, no. I mean, they were just the first ones up there as far as the private sector goes, and as far as jumping off, we know that different private companies have launched satellites and craft.
I think I heard some news about somebody hiring a professional jumper. McDonald's is the next to go up there. Want to beat Red Bull? Yeah, I was kidding.
Oh, damn. I thought they were going to do the golden arches all over the spaceway.
Oh, yeah, man. It's going to be their space station, the golden arcs.
Yeah.
Cheeseburgers in space.
M for Mason. Mason. But, multi-millionaire.
Yeah. That's funny.
But, Monopoly. Nah, but yeah, I mean, just because the Red Bull was the first guy, first company to do that, doesn't mean that they have a monopoly on it. It just means that they were the first ones to jump in that market, right? Unfair competition. There is no perfect competition in the market. We know that. We understand that. So we would have to really do. I'm not too sure as to how Konkin referred to the Koch brothers as a monopoly in the movement. I'm not 100% on that.
He's not listing it.
Again, yeah, Rothbard isn't sourcing what Konkin actually said. But I do know that from what I have heard from his speeches, from Konkin's speeches and stuff like that, there's only a couple on the internet. He said it wasn't good for PR, for public relations, because you have the biggest contributors to the Libertarian Party and movement being some rich oil guys. It's easy for the media, it's easy for the state, it's easy for socialists and communists to latch onto that and attack the movement as a whole when your biggest contributor is, part of the oil machine, which we know is monopolized by the state. A lot of aspects are. We don't know how much the Koch brothers specifically are, right? Who knows? But that's something we definitely need to look into. But I don't even.
You're like, damn. Oh God.
Oh Lordy.
Oh man.
But let's see here. So here he goes. Rothbard continues. I submit that Konkin has been egregiously unfair to Charles Koch. The only legitimate criticism of Koch is not the existence of the coctopus, but if the said coctopus takes a wrong and misguided track, then there's a complaint against it, right? Within Konkin's anti-party perspective, for example, it is perfectly legitimate for him to criticize Koch's tie in with the Libertarian Party, but not the existence of the Koch, largesse per se, the money, the machine, the business, the Koch business. So he might have an issue with that's a valid point with Rothbard bringing up here. I mean, it's easy if you're an anarchist, complete anarchist, and agorist, and you don't want to deal with party politics and parliamentary proceedings and voting and all that. I mean, it seems like a kind of a cop out just to say, oh well, they're donating to the party, therefore they're bad. It's kind of an intellectual cop out. I mean, I can see what Rothbard's saying there. But definitely we'll definitely do some more research on this for next week as far as exactly what Konkin said about the Koch brothers, and is it have any substantial verification and facts, or was it just hype? We definitely got to check that out. He continues on here, Rothbard. In many of Konkin's writings, however, one has the impression that simply the receipt of a grant or a taking of a job with Koch is evil, or indeed the taking of any steady job whatsoever.
Again, what defines a steady job?
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this when we first started reading this. It's like Rothbard seems to believe that somehow there's such thing as a steady job, when we know very well that that's just not the case. I mean, unless you're working for a corporation that is going to be guaranteed to be there in existence, for the next 50 years, you're not going to have a steady job for the rest of your life.
Yeah, just because you're, billionaire today doesn't mean you're going to be, the next couple months.
Yeah. So he finishes up section 3 here, the Coctopus, with but while there is nothing at all immoral or illegitimate about the existence of a Kochian monopoly in the movement, it does pose grave sociological problems. For if one man or organization constitutes or controls the entire movement, then any mistake of ideology, strategy, or tactics he or it may take will have grave consequences for the entire movement as a whole. If a small organization makes a mistake, however, the consequences are not so catastrophic. Here is a real problem, which it is impossible to see how to cure, short of finding a dozen more people like Koch. Surely Konkin's putative solution of Koch disappearing from the libertarian scene is a remedy far worse than the disease. The only thing I can think of is trying to persuade Koch to set up diverse and competing institutions in the movement, much as corporations often set up competing profit centers within their own organization. To some extent, this is already being done, as in the case of such an estimable institution as the Council for a Competitive Economy. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, Koch brothers are funding, giving a lot of money as far as to Cato Institute, the Reason Magazine, Libertarian Party, and I guess this Council for a Competitive Economy. So there's a couple there. But it's funny how people, it's funny, again, you talk to like Michael Moore-ites and all their fans, and it seems to run hand in hand. Oh, well, the Koch brothers give the Cato Institute, therefore everything the Cato Institute says, everything, all the research and articles they write and all the videos they make are automatically invalid. I don't have to debate all the points they make anymore because they receive money from the Koch brothers. So, automatically evil and wrong, and I don't have to address it intellectually at all. That's just the cop-out we see everywhere. Strawman arguments, if you will, right? Intellectual cowardice, right?
Or just plain old ignorance.
Yeah.
The big eye that stops them all. Understanding.
And hey, we're all ignorant about everything at some point.
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
Right? I mean,
definitely.
We're born in ignorance. Technically, you don't even know where your freaking mouth is. It takes you a couple weeks of. I don't know. I've never had a baby, but I mean, it probably takes I don't know. When does a baby finally learn how to eat on its own? Right? I mean, it doesn't even.
I don't know, man. I ain't got a baby.
I ain't got no babies. But no. But I mean, seriously. I mean, it's like we're born into ignorance. So
yeah.
So
I think it's because we learn from ignorant people.
Ignorance, yeah.
See, that's where the peaceful parenting comes in. We teach them not to be ignorant. We're raising little Einsteins.
But you see what I'm saying though, right, Darian? I mean, we're all born with a clean slate. We're all born ignorant of everything.
Oh yeah.
And I guess the main difference is people are arrogant in their ignorance, right? They think they're right and they're ignorant. And that's the problem. Is they
kind
think
of like that party
arrogant.
socialist.
Yeah, just like Party Socialist.
The Party Socialist.
Oh, the guy at the party. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you were to say, you know what, that's a good point. I don't fully understand that. I'm gonna research that. I'm ignorant about that. Right? I'm gonna research it. I'm gonna find out whether that what you told me makes sense or is true, and I'll get back to you. You know, can I have your email, whatever. And then that would be kind of like a humble searcher for truth, right? It's like, oh, you brought up something that I was unaware of. Therefore, let me go research it and double check what you just said, you know? But most people are like, oh, well, you just did something new I never heard of. Well, that's wrong.
Well, that's wrong. Because I know everything.
That's just wrong.
The state tells me it's wrong. Anarchy, what is that? It must be wrong.
Is that a bunch of people blowing each other up and killing each other?
It must be wrong then.
No, that's warfare, brother. That's war waged by the state.
And by the state. Yeah.
Let's see here. So, do we want to kill the next section? I think we can do it, dude. We got 20 minutes. We can kill it, and then that way we're done with this article and we can get something fresh in next week.
Oh yeah,
a little
freshness,
a little bit more constructiveness instead of all this counter-revolutionary rhetoric. I'm reading from the late great Rothbard,
the man himself.
Sadly, my respect for Rothbard, but I mean, it's like on a lot of these points he was kind of way off. Wasn't even on field, you know, just kind of like in the stands, just that sucks.
He's like, no, shut up, Konkin.
You're batting wrong.
He's just like, be quiet, Konkin.
Quit swinging. All right, so this last section here is the problem with the Libertarian Party. Let's see, this is the biggest critique that Konkin had against the Libertarian establishment was the party, the political party itself. Let's see if Rothbard does this justice or not. Much of the Konkinian critique of the Libertarian Party has been conflated with attacks on organizations and on monopoly per se, and I think I have shown that all these criticisms are either fallacious or miss the point. The main point being that these institutions are voluntary and are worth the problems they inevitably have, at least to those who participate in them. None of these institutions are unlibertarian, and the difficulties they bring in their wake are the problems of life. We turn to Konkin's Bede Nori, the Libertarian Party. There are two important questions to be resolved about the Libertarian Party. One, is it evil per se? And two, assuming that it isn't, is it legitimate or even necessary strategy for libertarians to adopt? I'm going to assume for the moment that the Libertarian political party, or for that matter, other forms of political action such as lobbying, are not evil per se. But if that is true, then all of Konkin's running arguments about the Libertarian Party's hierarchical nature, its power struggles, faction fighting, etc., are no more than the problems inherited in all organizations, whatever. And this we have already disposed of. This is weird. Rothbard, I mean, being, natural right anarchist that he was, anarcho-capitalist, he explicitly called out the state as being evil according to natural rights and law and order. So, I mean, you know,
it's like, I don't know what's happening here.
I don't know what's happening.
Who's really writing these?
Yeah, who's writing this? And then he acts like that already disproves, like, oh, well, we'll just assume that it's not evil. And if that's the case, then Konkin's wrong. And it's like, well, you didn't prove it not being evil. He has to prove that political action is not evil, right? And we know that the state flourishes on coercion. We know that the state only exists on a massive Ponzi scheme, right? Mm-hmm. Where people relegate their rights, relegate their property in order to keep the system afloat. And it's the biggest act of, right, immoral cesspool that has ever existed.
It's a whole bunch of bull.
It's a whole bunch of bull, right? So, hopefully Konkin really does address this a lot better than what he's done so far. Let's see where he goes with this. More important, I see no other conceivable strategy for the achievement of liberty than political action. Religious or philosophical conversion of each man and woman is simply not going to work. That strategy ignores the problem of power. the fact that millions of people have a vested interest in statism, are not likely to give it up. That's true. They're not likely to give it up. So violent revolution will not work in democratic political system. Konkinian agorism is no answer, as I have shown above. Wait. So, okay, you see, he's contradicting himself again. Philosophical conversion, right, he says, is not going to work. Even if it's every man and woman in the world, it's not going to work, because we still have to deal with the problem of power. And then he goes on to say that millions of people have a vested interest in statism, and they're not likely to give it up. And this is why violent revolution is not going to work, because we're living in a democratically elected political system. It's like, okay, well, this is a big clusterfuck of information, because it's like, well, then wait a minute, Rothbard, how are we supposed to use political action in the Libertarian Party to gain freedom then? If millions of people are vested in the state, then the Libertarian Party is going to fail anyway. Voting for freedom is going to fail, since most people love the state.
Yeah, and no, I believe that statement to be false. I mean, we've talked to a couple Army personnel that, I mean, of course, it's statism. You know, like they're living off of something we deem immoral, but they still have the philosophy that we have. They still believe in the same things that we do. It's just they can't say anything because, you know, they belong to the state. I mean, they may be invested, like, with it, but
right,
they could be converted. So I don't know what he's talking about there.
Well, no, but this is really but that's a good point, Darian, because this is exactly what Rothbard's saying. He's saying, even if you philosophically convert, like all the military, they still have a vested interest to serve the military, right? They get paid, they have their benefits, they have their kids, you know, schooling and food and everything. So how are you supposed to do away with that? And it's kind of like we're in a catch-22 in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
it's kind of a little bit of a double-bladed sword, right?
Yeah, we are, because on one hand, Rothbard wants to say, okay, well, let's vote our way into liberty, into prosperity. And at the same time, he's saying, but you know what? Too many people are vested in the state, so revolution's never going to work. So what gives you any idea that democratically electing a smaller government is going to work? If most people are vested in the state, that's not going to work either. So really, the only solution is to opt out, is to create an alternative, is to create a second realm, is to build alternatives to the system, agorism. That's really the only alternative, right? We can't wait on people to wake up. We can't wait on the whole world to convert. We can't wait on everyone to vote for, you know, Rand Paul. Like, that ain't gonna work. Like, that's just not gonna happen. So what can we do now? What can we do to bring it into the real world, right?
Become the change.
Yeah.
Be the change. Opt out. Say, fuck the bullshit.
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of a catch-22 that we're in, that Rothbard pointed out really, pretty well, is that it seems like he kind of proved himself wrong there. He proved his point wrong, that, you know, obviously democratic process, political action isn't going to work.
Man, Rothbard, you high?
Yeah, Rothbard, you smoking something?
He's smoking some weed, dude. Come on. Retype.
I don't know. Every time I smoke weed, I get way more philosophical than this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he must.
Seems like he must have been drinking some like gin or something.
I don't know, man. He must have a gun pointed to the back of his head. It must be
write it, Rothbard. But it doesn't make sense.
He's like, it doesn't make sense, and he's like, I'm not asking you for sense.
I'm asking you to write it. Sign your name, damn it. People respect you, Rothbard.
They'll believe what you say. This is like, over here we're questioning it.
They won't double check it.
They won't. But over here we're questioning it. We're questioning everything he's saying. And we're like,
yeah, exactly, right? What did Mark Twain say? 5% of people think, 10% of people think they think, and 85% of people like run away from thinking at all. You know, they like totally like completely afraid of it, like despise it. And it's really that 10% that thinks they think that we have a problem with, right? Because at least the people that don't think, they can admit to the fact that, hey, you know what? I don't know about that.
Hey, man, know what? I don't want to hear about it. All right,
I don't want to hear about it, man. Leave me alone.
I'm good, dude, with my McDonald's and my corporations, you know, monopolizing on, you know, my tax dollars. You know, I'm cool with that, dude. Just leave me alone. All right, I'm happy. And then you got the people who are like, okay, well, I'm gonna think, but you know, socialism is great. You know, it's great. You're not thinking this through, man. You're not really thinking. You're thinking. You're thinking.
You're thinking that you're thinking. Yeah. So Rothbard continues on here. He says, education in liberty is, of course, vital, but it is not enough. Action must also be taken to roll back the state, specifically to repeal state laws, like price control or withholding tax, for example, or even like marijuana laws. Despite their widespread non-enforcement, there are always some people who get cracked down on, especially if the police wish to frame them for other reasons. Tax rebels are admirable, but only in micro terms. The taxes are still there, and the wage earners pay them. Tax rebellion is not a strategy for victory. Single-issue lobbying groups, example, anti-draft organizations, taxpayer organizations, gold standard groups, etc., are fine and admirable, but they do not complete the job for two basic reasons. A, because they are a single issue, and therefore cannot educate anyone in libertarianism across the board, and B, because they cannot do the vital job of repealing the status laws. They can only argue the repeal of the draft, for example. They can't actually do the repealing. Why should we cut ourselves off from this necessary and vital step of doing and repealing? Of course, if one believes with Bob Lefevre that it is equally immoral to repeal as to impose the draft, then the repeal of anything is out of the question. But I will shout hosannas for any repeal of statism, and do not concern myself with coercion of those who'd like to keep the draft and are deprived of it. And here basically, we'd have to look back at slavery or any laws that get repealed. The only fact and the only reason that laws get repealed is because no one is following them anymore. Right? That's the only reason the draft got repealed. Enough people refused to go to the draft. Enough people were draft dodgers.
No. Did the draft get repealed? Did it really? Or did they just change the name?
No, they didn't get repealed, but you know what I mean. They don't enforce it. I guess they don't enforce it anymore.
Unless they really need it.
Unless they need it, then they'll bring it back in. But yeah, I mean, it got put at the back of the books on the back burner, not because we elected fine statesmen to Congress to defend liberty and defend liberty of conscience. No, it got put in the back burners because people were willing to defy the call to go to war, the draft. They were willing to go to Canada, willing to go to Mexico, willing to hide in the U.S., face fines and jail time. That's what enough people did that, and that's what got the legislators to say, maybe we shouldn't enforce this anymore because we can't really enforce it anyways. And not enough people are following it.
Our taxpayers are leaving the country. We can't have that happen. They're vital for our survival. So they repealed it, right?
Hey, Burger King.
Yeah.
Hold your horses.
Hold your horses. We'll do what you say as long as you stay, man. We get most of our money from you.
So it's funny, it's funny that I mean, do we have any example where Congress has repealed its own laws without like massive civil disobedience? I mean, I don't really know of any personally. I'm a young guy. Maybe there's older examples, but I don't know. I haven't really heard of like. I mean, they Congress thinks they're like the Pope or something when it comes to that. It's like once Congress says it is, it always is. Like we can never go back on our word because it shows we fucked up. It shows we made a mistake, and
I won't admit that.
We can't admit we made a mistake now. It's like seriously, it's like those Obamacare, right? It's like we're never gonna get it appealed. We're never gonna get the Congress to repeal it or to amend it or whatever. Yeah, they might get it amended. Yeah, put a different name on it, but it's still going to be there. It's still going to be on the law books because they already passed it. They're already counting on all this revenue to come in from it. They're already counting on all these different organizations to get all this tax revenue from it. So, I mean, it's just not going to happen unless, of course, you have mass civil disobedience, whether on a state level or individual level, right? I mean, people just refusing to sign up for Obamacare, then it's going to fall on its face. Same with marijuana laws, right? When people continue to smoke out in public, when people continue to not give a rat's ass about getting caught with pot, and it just keeps happening and happening and happening, eventually it's going to have to break. And the fact that states are decriminalizing it now really shows that this has been, this is exactly the case. I mean, these happen to be the states that were most accepting of marijuana, right? People that smoked the most weed were in these states. So, of course, they're going to be the first ones to go.
I still think it's pretty irritating how, like, I can still get arrested for it over here, but if I go a couple states over, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, it's like, then just repeal the whole damn law. This has gone way too far.
Oh, you getting rid of states' rights, boy?
It's just like, yeah, if that means people can have more rights, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. That's a big philosophical can of worms. I mean, it's like the argument: should we have a big central government that forces all the other states to be libertarian?
This is like, well, but why is state representative and state this get to decide? Well, do we want to change the law or not? It's just like, well, actually, you should leave that up to the people what they want, and then let them decide what is gonna be legal here and what's not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, when was the last time that came up for a vote, right?
Yeah, when was the last time a bunch of people went in and it's just like, oh well, if you want pot to be decriminalized here in Texas, and voting date is this to this. It's just like, well, I haven't seen that ever.
And I mean, come on now. I mean, that's kind of a false situation there. Let's just have a voting situation where we'll put a bunch of voting stands and government public schools with cops and everything around there, and then we'll ask stoners to come on in and like vote for marijuana prohibition to get to be done away with. It's like, really, like, you expect a bunch of stone people to come to like a government building and not be paranoid as heck, right?
I think they're watching me, man.
Hey man, they're watching me, bro.
They're watching me. This guy behind me has been, he cut in line. He's been standing there staring at me for hours.
Turn around and he's just really stoned you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like, I mean, come on now. It's like, it reminds me of that Simpsons episode where they were voting. Springfield was voting to bring in medical marijuana, and like all those potheads, flaked out because they all freaking forgot it was voting day. It's like,
yeah, it's funny. The bus driver. Oh man, what time is it?
Did I miss it?
Otto, yeah.
Kind of look like Otto, man.
Nah, I don't know. So we got like a page left, bro. We'll save it for next week.
And then I guess we could start on something else after that page. That one page, the final chapter.
The final page, yeah. We'll wrap that up next week, and we'll definitely start reading the New Libertarian Manifesto for you listeners. Definitely worth reading, checking it out. What's up?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's listening, and I guess a shout out to like whoever gave us a call on here. Sorry about that. We kind of jumped on. Yeah, you kind of jumped on us there. We're not too sure how to work this yet, and with callers, but
well, yeah, we're not expecting live calls on this show.
Yeah, so we'll figure out how to work that, I guess. We'll try to make a session to where we can have some callers come in.
Well, I think it's my uncle looking for weed or something, bro.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. It's a business transaction. Anyways, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, everybody that is going to tune in. We are on the Voluntary Virtues Network. We are Agora Underground. We are in association with Free San Antonio, A.C.T, Agora Central Texas, Agora Central Center of Thought, and we are Change. And I mean, it's just really interesting, hear what Rothbard had to say about Konkin. And stay tuned for the craziness, y'all.
Yeah, definitely. We do appreciate y'all for listening in, and Darian wrapped it up there pretty good. So, we definitely invite y'all next week, and keep watching Voluntary Virtues, keep reading up, keep educating people around you, have a beer for us, and we'll catch y'all next week, and we'll leave y'all out with the classic tune.
All right, laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire, guys.
Yeah, it's good. It's a real good show. See, I'm getting this.